All right, what's up guys? In today's video, we're going to take a look at the Fennec SMG, aka the Vector, the brand new DLC weapon in Warzone. We're going to take a look at some of the attachments, breaking them down to try and give you guys the best class setup possible, telling you guys what attachments stack best together, and what are some of the actual best attachments to give you guys to build the best class setup for this weapon. It is the fastest shooting gun in the game, so the time to kill of it is incredible. My next video will be comparing this gun to the MP5 and the MP7, deciding what is the best SMG in Warzone. So if you guys learn anything new in this video, it does help you guys make the best class setup possible for this gun. Make sure you guys leave a like. And 95% of you guys that watch the videos have not yet subscribed, so make sure you guys click that subscribe button down below. The first thing to talk about to build the best class setup for this gun is actually going to be the barrels. The biggest difference between the barrels in this is you have the Saber barrel, which is also a suppressor, which is in the muzzle category. Both the Saber and the Deadfall both have built-in suppressors, which to me is pretty awesome. And then the Apex is obviously just a regular long barrel, which is pretty cool. So as far as comparing these unique stats about them, the difference in the stats that you guys are going to see compare the difference is the strafe speed, your aim down sight time, your recoil, and your range increase. There's only 4 major changes between these barrels. The one thing I learned is the hip fire is actually identical across all 3 barrels, which to me makes that Deadfall barrel pretty good because usually long barrels have a worse hip fire. So that's definitely a unique stat about it. But as far as talking about the difference, the main difference for me first is going to be in the recoil. You guys can see default recoil on the left. The Saber barrel is going to be next, then the Apex, and the Deadfall. You guys can see the Saber barrel, the stability of it is absolutely incredible. That's probably my favorite thing about this barrel is the stability of the recoil. It obviously has a little bit more kick than the Apex. And then the biggest thing you'll note going down from the Apex to the Deadfall is it just slowly steps down in recoil. The longer your barrel is, the less recoil it has. But by switching from the Saber to those Apex and that Deadfall barrel, you guys are going to be getting not as a stable recoil, which is going to make it a little bit harder to hit your shots. So definitely the Saber is going to take the recoil pattern for sure. As far as the biggest difference in your ranges, you guys will be able to see on the screen a chart showcasing the ranges. The base range of that 12 meters, by switching from each barrel, you're going to get a 1 meter increase. So you're going to go from 12 to 13 to 14 with 3 barrels, which is actually negligible. You probably won't even notice it. The biggest factor you can see is that second range drop. You guys are going to get about 2 more meters, and the third range drop about 3 more meters. So the range to me is absolutely irrelevant on these barrels. You won't really notice it in game at all. 2 meters is so minimal, you probably really won't notice it. As far as the aim down sight time, like I said, the Apex barrel is 2 frames slower, about 34 milliseconds slower. But in order to use the best class of Warzone, I always recommend the monolith suppressor. That's the biggest negative about the Apex barrel is it has to be stacked with a silencer. That Saber barrel is about the same, 2 frames slower, 34 milliseconds slower, and your Deadfall barrel is 3 frames slower. So you're going to go from 217 milliseconds aim down sight time about 267. So you're going to be 1 frame slower to get a little bit more range and a little bit less recoil, which to me, I don't really know if it's worth the trade-off. This is an SMG. Aim down sight time is an excellent thing you need to go for. And then as far as the biggest factor between the barrels, the Saber barrel obviously has a hidden stat, which is that strafe speed. It's actually about 12% slower, which is massive. You're going to take this from SMG to now lower level AR, which is a huge negative. The Apex barrel actually has the fastest strafe speed, only about 7% slower, which is still pretty good. And the Deadfall barrel, once again, slower aim down sight time, but the least amount of recoil. But you also get the lowest strafe speed possible, minus 15%. And you go from SMG level to now bottom level AR, which is terrible. So it's not going to be as good in the close range. So if you're using this weapon, building your class setup for a mid to long range, obviously that Deadfall barrel is going to be best for you. But if you're trying to build a class setup to run overkill with, 100% avoid the Deadfall barrel. So if you're asking for that final breakdown of which actually I think is the best barrel, I'm going to 100% take that Saber barrel. The difference in range is not noticeable. It has the best recoil. The stabilization is the best. Obviously, that strafe speed is a little bit on the slow end, but you basically can stack this with the Apex barrel as well, which is what makes it cool. Also, with the Apex barrel, you're going to have to stack with the monolith suppressor or the Saber to get the best range in Warzone, which to me is going to be a big negative. So like I said, I think the Saber is the best. The Deadfall is probably second best, but the fact that you're going to have to use this as a longer medium range weapon, I really don't recommend it. So the Saber to me is obviously just going to be the best barrel 100%. So the next thing we're talking about is what is the best grip to use on the Fennec, along with what is the best grip to stack with what barrels. The biggest factor for me and what makes the Commando probably the best grip to use on this is the side-to-side variance on this gun is probably some of the worst I've seen. Very similar to that of the MP7. If you guys take a look at that recoil pattern of the long barrels, you guys will see both the deadfall and the apex have a lot of side-to-side variance. In exchange, they also get a lot of vertical recoil reduction. So what they are best stacked with is that Commando foregrip. So what I did is I did a test. I basically took the best class setup. I put the Commando, the Merc, and the Ranger. You guys can see on the screen the recoil pattern of it. You guys can see the difference between the vertical recoil is almost identical. The difference is the Commando, the first like 10 to 20 shots are all in a perfectly straight line. So it gives it the best accuracy to me. So it's definitely be number one. As far as comparing the Ranger versus the Merc, the biggest negative is the aim down sight time. They both are about 1 frame slower, 17 milliseconds. The strafe speed, which is the negative, is also identical, 14% slower strafe speed, which is to me pretty massive. This gun doesn't really have any attachments that increase the strafe speed. So that to me is a big factor in why I like the Commando so much better. As far as what the Merc foregrip actually does, you get about a 30% better hip fire spread, which once again is incredible. I think it's 100% better than what the Ranger does. The Merc is going to be best stacked with that no stock attachment, obviously. And with the Ranger, I found it to give me the best recoil pattern, a little bit more better than the Merc. The difference, though, is with your idle sway improvement, it's very minimal. You get a slightly smaller circle, kind of similar to what the hip fire spread does to the Merc. It's a little bit smaller circle, so it's going to be a little bit easier to control, but idle sway is probably the last thing you look for as far as improving in your accuracy of an SMG, especially with a weapon like this that's close range. So the Commando is 100% number one. The Merc is definitely the number two grip, and the Ranger I wouldn't really recommend at all. I would only really recommend the Commando and the Merc. So the next thing we take a look at is the no stock attachment. You guys know I almost recommend this on every single gun. Once again, this is probably the best attachment to use on the Vector. The biggest thing for me is it makes the iron sight smaller. You guys can see on the screen. The Vector has a pretty big iron sight. As a close range weapon, with that iron sight blocking some of your screen, it's definitely going to help out a lot. The biggest factor is it also does not affect your strafe speed. On almost every other gun, you're going to get a 15% faster strafe speed. It has no effect on this gun, which to me is a big negative. Your recoil is slightly worse, so you guys can see. And as far as your idle sway, it has a very minimal effect on it. So the two negatives about it is probably barely noticeable. Your movement speed is about 3% faster, which is going to help this gun move a lot faster. Your aim down sight's 2 frames faster, about 15%, which is also a massive increase because this is a bit of a slower SMG. And your hip fire spread was about 30% better. So definitely recommend stacking this with that Merc foregrip. Your hip fire spread is going to be pretty much non-existent. You're going to be able to hit every single shot. You also get a massive increase to your aim down sight time. So it's definitely going to stack best with that deadfall long barrel, which they're basically going to counter each other out in the negatives and aim down sight and movement speed to still give you an excellent setup. So it's definitely an excellent attachment. As far as the new unique stock, which they've slightly started adding to more guns, the ZLR Blade, it's the aiming stability, aim walking steadiness stock, which is kind of cool. It doesn't really do anything for an SMG. Your strafe speed is the best thing about using an SMG. It makes your strafe speed about 25% slower. So you're going to go from SMG level straight to LMG immediately. So your close range ability to win gunfights is going to go down by a lot, which this is an excellent close range weapon. You do get a lot better idle sway, but that strafe speed is massive for what makes the gun good. So I 100% recommend avoiding it. The tack laser, you guys know, I almost recommend on every single class setup. Has a very minimal effect on this gun. You obviously get about 8% faster aim down sight time, about 1 frame, which is very minimal. You also get a slightly better idle sway, which this gun still has a pretty good idle sway. But due to the fact that it's a close range weapon only, you're in those 30 to 20 meter max. I don't recommend the tack laser because it's a lot easier to see under 30 meters. So definitely don't recommend it. But as far as talking about the stippled grip tape, this is definitely 100% of them I'm going to be recommending. Your sprint out speed with this gun is going to be about 2 frames faster, 25% faster with this attachment. With this gun being an excellent close range, probably the best close range weapon in the game, your sprint out time being faster is going to make a massive improvement in your ability to win one-on-one gunfights. So I definitely 100% recommend it. All it does is make your stability worse, which, like I said, this has some of the best stability I've seen on an SMG. It also gives you a slightly faster aim down sight time. So 2 excellent positives to get, which kind of where this gun slacks or where the gun needs help. is definitely probably one of the best attachments. And the last thing I recommend is kind of a weird thing to say, but I 100% recommend using a red dot if you guys aren't familiar or can't really use the iron sights. The Vector has been around in like Ghosts, I think it was in MW3, a couple other games. And back in Ghosts, probably the game I'm most familiar with when I used it, I think almost every single person ran a red dot on it because it made the gun a lot better. It's going to help a little bit with your recoil. So you could definitely use a red dot. It's going to help with your recoil. But as far as talking about the best class setup, we're talking about Warzone and multiplayer. In Warzone, obviously, you're going to avoid not using that no stock. So what we're going to use is obviously the 40 round mag. Once again, that commando foregrip, which like I said is probably the best grip. We're going to be stacking that deadfall barrel on there to give us the most range possible. It's also going to give us the least amount of recoil, which when stacked with that commando is probably going to give you the best recoil pattern. We're going to be putting obviously that stipple grip on there to give us that faster sprint out to try and help it also be a good close range weapon. And then the last attachment, which I never really recommend, is going to be sleight of hand. Sleight of hand on this gun is excellent. This is mainly going to be the best class for Warzone. So what you're going to be doing is taking this gun and stacking it with like a Grau or an M4. So running sleight of hand, you're going to have two weapons usually to use, so I definitely would 100% recommend sleight of hand. As far as the best class setup for matchmaking for regular multiplayer, we're going to be swapping out that long barrel. We're going to put in the saber barrel on there, which is going to help a little bit with our range. It's going to help us get a little bit more range, more for the medium to long range fights. Obviously putting that commando foregrip on there because it's the best grip. Obviously the 40 round mag and the stipple grip tape to give us the best ability to get a lot more kills at close range. And obviously putting no stock on there. No stock is probably my most favorite attachment. It's going to help with your overall movement speed. You can get around a lot faster. Recoil is going to be slightly worse, but when countered by that saber and that commando foregrip, probably won't be that well known. That's pretty much the best class for me in multiplayer. So hopefully this video helps you guys make a better class. Like I said, if you guys do enjoy, please make sure you guys hit the like button and leave a comment down below. Also, if you guys haven't yet subscribed, click that red subscribe button down below and make sure you guys use code Trapgod on all of your scuff and GFUEL purchases. And I'll talk to you guys in the next video.